lot, everybody, for joining. This is Pankaj Gupta from EthAum Venture Partners. I'm managing partner of EthAum. We are a deep tech accelerator based in Singapore. We have approximately 56 startups in our portfolio. All of these are AI, ML, blockchain, IoT, robotics, AR/VR kind of startups from different parts of the world, stages, and sectors. Pulsifi is one of the startups that went through the accelerator program, and since then they have been doing fantastic, right? They are transforming the HR tech space, not only in Southeast Asia, but also in other part of the world. And since they are transforming the HR tech space, we thought, right, why should we do a panel and probably try to learn more about the space from the experts who are living and breathing in the HR tech space, who are looking at all kind of innovations, who are facing the challenges or micro trends that are going on in the HR tech space. And that was the whole idea behind hosting this panel. So again, thanks to Dr. D, Adriana, Vaneeta, and Alex. I don't know if Alex has been able to join, but yeah, thanks to all of you for joining. And I'm hoping that we will hear a lot of amazing things and insights from you today. Now, I would love to get a brief introduction from you so that the audience can know who you are, what you have been doing, and why you are excited about the HR tech space and innovation. And then obviously we will get into a brief overview of Pulsifi, and then we will get into Q&A. Make sense? Okay, I'll start with Dr. D. Please go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning or good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Deanna Kimbrough, and I reside in Rochester, New York. Currently, I serve as the Chief Diversity Officer for Monroe County. In Monroe County, we have about 760,000 community members that we serve, and then within our organization, we have about 5,000 employees that we serve. This office, or the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, was implemented in March of this year. This is the first time ever that this county has had someone in the diversity role and leading a diversity charge for our community. Some of the things that we focus on is making sure that we are providing all of our departments. We have about 23 departments within Monroe County, and we are providing all of our departments with guidance around recruiting, hiring, promoting, and developing people from diverse backgrounds. We also focus on the equal employment opportunity, so we handle any issues as they are related to harassment or discrimination. We also handle the ADA, Americans Disability Accommodations. So when anyone needs a particular accommodation, we handle those issues. We also ensure language services for all those where English is not their first language or they are not proficient in English. So those of the deaf and hard of hearing community, our Hispanic population, and any other population that is not proficient in English. And we also work with our minority and women-owned businesses to gain contracts with the county in order to grow their business. So those are just a few of the things that we do. I've been in this work for about 15 years, working around culture, around leadership, and DEI. I've worked across several different sectors, including government now, the corporate, as well as higher education. And I will say diversity, equity, and inclusion looks different in each industry and from each organization that you go to as well. We know that there are some prime things that we need to do around DE&I, but how we do it is going to look a lot different based on industry and based on organization. And also I'm excited, I'm really excited about using technology in order to bring people together, in order to track our efforts around DEI and just make sure that we are making progress. So that's my spill.
Thanks a lot, Dr. D. Really appreciate your presence today. Adriana? Please go ahead.
Hola, everyone. My name is Adriana Holt. I'm very passionate about humanity and leadership, as you all. I have 2 girls, and my focus is really to do my part to guarantee a sustainable future. I had the opportunity to invest 20 years plus in different industries and organizations from PepsiCo, Unilever, consultancy, manufacturing, pharma. Right now I'm serving energy sector with a sustainable energy. And from all of this, really the central learning so far has been that an organization is only as good as the people it employs, right? So brainstorming today about the importance of technology to enhance job fit, cultural fit beyond just the needed capabilities is really exciting. So thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, Adriana. I really appreciate your time today. Vaneeta, please unmute yourself. Yep, please go ahead.
Hi, good morning and good evening, everybody. It is so exciting to be here with all of you talking about technology. So I head human resource function for North America for Impetus. Impetus is an organization which is serving Fortune 500 companies in the area of big data and cloud services, products and solutions. I'm responsible for attracting and retaining talent and building an inclusive, empowering and high integrity work environment. It's been a passion to help develop people and nearly bringing in a diverse experience leading people function. We've done some good work in Impetus with a tech background of the company. We are trying to bring as much tech to the HR function to make sure that working in remote environment, we are able to serve people, engage them and attract top talent. So I'm excited to be here and learn more about it today.
Thanks a lot, Vaneeta. I think you came to the right panel where we are going to talk about technology a lot, right? Alex, do we have Alex on the call? It seems she could not join. Okay, Jay, why don't we have a... Yeah, please.
Okay, yeah, we can catch up with Alex when she finally gets in. Hi, my name is Jay. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Pulsifi. So many years ago, I actually went to college in the US. So East Coast at Cornell, West Coast at UC Berkeley. And actually my first role was in venture capital. So spent a lot of time in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then I went on to the Boston Consulting Group, where I helped many organizations with various kinds of projects, small ones, big ones, but always revolving around people being the most difficult thing to get through. So a couple of years ago, my co-founder and I, Pete, we started Pulsifi. And what we do is provide a people data platform, and we think of it as a platform that connects the dots in terms of all kinds of people data throughout the organization, throughout the talent life cycle. So for example, from hiring, how do we connect resumes to psychometric profiles to performance data to really understand people holistically, and then connect that again to learning, connect that to longer term development, even like engagement and wellness. The idea really is to be able to understand people really well at the workplace, how people think, how we act, how we feel, and from there, use these predictions to be able to really personalize HR decisions all the way from hiring to learning to so on and so forth. Very happy to be working with customers like Nestle, KPMG in 9 countries, where we have helped them with, for example, making really accurate predictions about people so that they can get hiring right, for example, 90% accuracy. And then our experience really covers markets like Singapore, whereby it's really labor tight. So it's really about maximizing what you have versus markets like Indonesia, whereby volumes are really, really high. You have maybe up to 50,000 people applying for a few jobs. So yeah, we really love to have this exchange with our panelists to really bring our different perspectives together.
Jay, we have Alex on the call. Hi, Alex.
Okay.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, Alex, hi.
Hello, everyone. I apologize. I'm having some technical difficulties. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes.
My name is Alex. I am My name is Alex Smith. I'm the Chief HR Officer for the City of Memphis. In this role, I'm responsible for the HR strategy and execution for 8,300 employees, 2/3 of which are police and fire. Our employees serve our citizen base, which is around 650,000 residents here in the city of Memphis. One of my claims to fame is we actually started our Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Office in 2016. And we have been on this journey for over 5 years in driving for inclusion and support to our city employees as a part of our strategy. Secondary is that I am very much so a proponent of technology. And our second claim of fame is that we were the largest public sector implementation of the Oracle HR cloud solution for our HR team in 2018. And the premise behind that was looking at how we could leverage technology to expand the capability of our HR team so that we could focus on the strategic matters of the city. So I'm glad to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Alex, for joining. Okay, Jay, are you ready with all the questions?
Yes. They always say being a moderator is a bit easier because someone else does the answering. Okay, actually, I know that today's panel focuses a lot on HR tech, but I thought of taking a step back, a bigger picture. We'd like to ask our panelists, what are your top 3 priorities? The 3 biggest things that concern you a bit, keep you up a little bit at night. Would anybody want to start?
Jay, I can start. I would say some of our top priorities are the things that keep me up at night. That's a good question. But it really does surround the technology. So do we have the right tools in order to meet our goals around diversity, equity, and inclusion? One of our biggest goals is education. So how do we create a system of learning as it relates to all things? So not just DEI, but to ensure that people have the proper education for their roles. They have leadership skills, being able to acquire knowledge to gain additional leadership competencies. So do we have the right tools to do that? And that means that we need to have something that will span across the organization, where we can measure and track education. And right now we don't. So I'm working on finding an LMS tool that will allow us. So not only are we responsible for educating our workforce, but also the community as it were, in regards to DEI. So we are, making sure that we have the right tools so that we can be effective in that, right? So there's no way that I'm going around and talking to everybody about DEI. We have to have the right tools so that we can deliver content in the virtual space, different modalities. People can do it from their phone, people can do it from a tablet or their computer, they can do it on the weekend, or, giving people that flexibility so that they can learn on their own time, on, what works for them. So it really is having those right tools to make sure that we are properly educated and people have access. And that's another thing as well. Are we considering the differences in regards to providing access as well? So that's one of the main things right now, is finding the right learning management system that will allow us to educate our workforce, our community, and also be accessible for people of all abilities and disabilities as well. So I would say that is our number 1 priority. And our number 2 is implementing our diversity action plan across all 23 departments that we have, and that's just a framework in the way in which we will move forward to have scalability around DEI across our organization. So those are 2, but they feel like 10. Okay. So.
Thanks for sharing, Dr. D. Adriana, thanks.
I can share about our priorities. I think more than finding the right technology for us is really building the learning culture, right? Like, people is really overwhelmed. We are asking to do more with less. And the main challenge is not that there is no resources or technology that allow them to consume in different timings, different days. It's all about, where do you find the time, right? We keep raising the bar somehow, right? Expecting people to learn, to reskill, to upskill, to be resilient despite all the changes that we have been all experiencing. Continue having a purpose, right? At a high level of engagement. So how do you do that, right? How do you do that on this new environment where the demands are really high, the attention to talent is not always there, right? The priority is the bottom line, productivity. So I think that's one of the concerns, the resilience. How do we build resilience on our employees? How do we build and continue with a strong purpose? So I know that you were describing the holistic approach, right? You use the word holistic, which really resonated with me. Mm-hmm. And it's that, right? From our side, is how do we start making sense of this employee experience, from how we bring people, the value proposition that we offer, and the consistency that we can really provide along the journey in any organization. So I think that's one of the priorities. Another concern that I have or we have is really the understanding a leadership level of what talent means, what they really require. What is the time and the effort and the investment needed to really manage talent? I think sometimes we believe that aspirin will fix retention, for example, right? Like, or you speak retention or help with retention. We haven't seen the signs, right, for a year at least, that retention will be an issue. Oh, just let's do something about retention last minute. No, let's do something about return to work, right? With all these vaccination, no vaccination, and so I think the understanding, right, of what talent management really means and their responsibility on this is a critical priority for us. So I will leave it there because otherwise I can go on and on.
Thanks for sharing, Adriana.
Jay, is it okay if I just comment on what Adriana mentioned?
Of course. Yeah, of
course. Adriana, I think you make some really good points around the responsibility that everybody in the organization has around developing talent and those different things. And even with DEI, I think that it's important that all leaders and everybody understand that this is an organizational wide responsibility, not just the people that have this in their title. It is very important that everybody, especially leaders, understand their role and responsibility around these things as it relates to talent.
Yeah.
Good point.
I agree with that.
And this is Chief Smith here. So I would say the key thing that we're focused on, and it's really related to that, is related to management and leadership capability post-pandemic. And we are looking for what are the most important and effective ways that we can infuse different ways of approaching management for our particularly our seasoned managers to be able to not only address inclusion and belonging, but also
Oops.
address the issue around. Oh, sorry.
I think we lost you for the past 5 seconds. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. But looking at manager capability in terms of also affecting retention as well as wellness. Because one of the things we've seen with the pandemic is that emotional and mental health has been dramatically impacted for a number of individuals, and our ability to be able to provide support to employees during this critical time is very important, and managers play a key role. The phrase, employees do not leave organizations, they leave managers is very true. And so the ability to be able to infuse as much understanding and knowledge and tools for managers to be able to use and access to be able to have not only crucial conversations with their employees, but be able to be adaptable and flexible to the needs of their teams is very important.
Agree with that. I think a lot of times managers don't get trained to become managers. They get sort of thrust into it, and some people become great managers, some don't. So it'd be great to really be able to help every one of them. Vaneeta, what are your top 3 priorities?
Yeah, so listening into what the other distinguished panel members are talking here, I guess one of the key important thing is post-pandemic, once the workforce come back, And even right now in the hybrid model, how do we have the tools that allow managers to engage teams? So engagement is very important, given people are sitting in different environments, sitting at home with kids, without kids. There's a lot happening when it comes to they being stressed out due to lack of boundaries between work and life. It's important how we engage them, how do we de-stress them, how do they contribute to the best, having all the stresses and burnouts that they have. So engagement is definitely important. And at this time, the workforce is sitting in different locations. It's not cohesively sitting in one office. They're all in different locations, different timings. So how do we engage them? How do the managers engage their teams? And I guess the other burning issues are definitely common, attracting top talent and retaining them. With the great resignation around the corner, everybody is fearing people moving, leaving for more compensation or areas where there's lower cost to live. I guess these are some of the areas I would like to focus in the incoming months.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. I think we are hearing some common themes, so I thought maybe I'll dive into some of these to get your thoughts. I think there was one big theme around learning, helping everybody to get better at their roles, helping managers become better managers, helping leaders appreciate their talent. I want to get your thoughts on this in the sense that the space of learning, I would say, has been around for some time. There's a lot of content out there. There's been a lot of initiatives and a lot of push towards transformation, digitalization, things like that. I wanted to get your thoughts on what needs to change that isn't there for learning to really have the impact it's supposed to deliver.
Jay, I would add, as you said, yeah, learning has been around for a while. There's content out there we've seen over the last year through 2020, how that content has we've seen an uptick in that content, especially as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. For me, I would say it really depends on the quality of the education and of the learning material and how it is delivered. I think that it is important, instead of us teaching or lecturing to our employees, to our communities, it's important that we have dialogue. And I think often that is what is missing from a lot of the content that we have. There's a lecture, we're telling people information, but not really sharing information through dialogue, sharing experiences. And that becomes particularly important when we are speaking about DEI, because it really is about the experiences that people have and being able to share in those and educate each other. So I think that component, that dialogue is missing. Oftentimes I like to start with the virtual trainings as pre-work and give people the opportunity to explore concepts a bit and then bring people together for dialogue. So instead of us, if we have an hour to have a conversation or to learn, I would rather use that time to have fruitful discussions around the content and give people the autonomy to learn more, about the terms and, different things like that. But when we come together, whether it be face-to-face or through a Zoom, we're using that time to connect and understand each other's experiences.
No, that makes sense. I think I agree on that point about the delivery, the way people learn. And perhaps in the past, it's been too focused on the classroom style methodology that doesn't work well for everybody necessarily. What do the rest of you think?
This is Chief Smith here. So I think there's also a need for a snack size or shorter burst of quick knowledge and learning. So oftentimes I think individuals they're juggling and managing a number of different things, and the ability to be able to quickly either learn a skill or be able to get quick points in a bite-sized micro learning type of package is really, really helpful. And we're experimenting with some of that now.
That makes sense. I think you mentioned this earlier, Dr. D, about being able to consume on the go as well, anytime people want to do that. What are your thoughts on being able to better recommend what people need to learn? Because the reality is there's a lot of stuff to learn out there, but maybe there should be a little bit of guidance in terms of personalizing learning, right? In terms of what really matters for your role and what those areas that each one of the learners could get help with the most.
I'll say that it really is all about relevancy, right? Relevancy to the individual and the organization. I understand that sometimes we should have clarity, right? As what are the organizational capabilities that everyone should focus on. I would recommend no more than 3, right? If it's collaboration or innovation or strategic thinking, whatever it is, right? What are the organizational capabilities that are going to differentiate the organization? And then in another hand is what is the relevancy, right, for your role. And the invitation that I want to extend is, we believe that the learning is just one component, right? And I will invite you to think about development. It's not just about the learning aspect of acquiring knowledge, right, in any form or shape. That right now we have a lot of technology and the mini bites and it has been really evolving a lot. That's just one aspect of development. When I think about how do I develop my employees, what is the relevancy of the content, of the relationships, of the experience that they need to be exposed to build the depth and breadth of knowledge, it's a very different approach, right? It's not about the learning system, it's not about the content, it's not about my learning journey, right? We are talking about how do I develop the capability that is needed for the organization and is needed for the individual. So just a thought.
Thanks for that sharing. Vaneeta, do you have any views on this? Learning.
I guess with the advent of technology and where we are moving, using AI for learning would be apt here. Listening to the panel, I think from where we are standing in our organization, we have e-learning modules. We have developed courses, programs, which are both e-learning modules and online programs and video programs. We've been able to address some of these needs that we are talking about, helping people upskill, raise their bar, move to the next level. Some of these programs that we've initiated. But I guess the next level would be how to automate it. How do we, as you were saying rightly, Jay, in the beginning, how do we understand what's right for which population and what's their learning mode? And I guess, as we have self-driven cars, do we have programs that allow us to go and learn, looking at my Retina, they propose me a program and the mode that I like. I guess that is the direction we are all moving. And as you rightly said, there's a lot of content available at different areas, whether it is at the organization level or publicly available, there's a lot out there. And to be able to decipher what's good for me, you'll just get drowned in what you want. So I guess some platform which allows you from an organization standpoint to kind of choose what's right for me and let that be available to the audiences is what I'd like to see.
Just wanted to share actually on this note, that's what we work with some of our customers on, being able to recommend the learning that's most relevant for the individual in terms of development areas, as well as what's relevant for the role and the organization, whether it's a competency framework or culture, and really connect them to the various content that the organization already has, for example, or it's something on like LMSs out there. So, that's something we believe in terms of automating that thing, as you said, but also providing an interface for employees and their managers to have a conversation about development plans, which is how do we guide these people to learn and maybe for us, for example, we believe the classroom learning is just 10% of it. There's a 20% involving modeling behaviors. Another 70% of that is really on-the-job training, which the manager needs to have an active role on. So anyway, yeah, that's something that I think we believe the industry will move towards. I wanted to move on to another theme, which is definitely DEI. Heard a lot of that. And DEI sounds like something that is both top-down and bottom-up, in the sense that it's a culture that everybody lives, but it's also something that the leadership needs to take a very strong stance about to sort of set a path or direction. I wanted to get your thoughts on how technology can play a role in something like this, which is actually very ingrained in culture.
Yeah. Jay, I think that's a great question. As you said, it really is a top and a bottom approach when you are looking to be effective around DEI. It is so much about the culture, as well as so much about the leadership as well. And I think when we think about how do we use technology to impact that, and one thing I think about is equity. So what is equity? How do we ensure equity? We want to see equity in the way that we hire, in the way in which people are promoted, in the way in which people are developed and given opportunity within organizations. But how do we track that? And if we don't have the systems to track that, how can we actually be implementing equity? So I think it is very important that we have performance management systems in place so that we can track our equity. Who is being promoted? What does succession plans look like? What does career pathing look like? So without that system, we can't really be equitable. So I think that it is important that we have those systems in place. Also, technology to keep people connected. As we can see with the pandemic, even when we are in the same area, in the same city, we may still need to use technology to be connected. Many organizations, especially those that are global, how do we bring people together that are not in the same area and create that humanistic experiences? So I think that having the right technology in order to do that, in order to pull people in order to allow people to collaborate, communicate, and learn about each other's cultures is very important. So those are just two ways outside of the LMS, but those are just two ways that I see us using technology to help leaders, as well as to help the culture around being more diverse, equitable, and inclusive.
Just wanted to pick up on your first point in terms of tracking equity and equal opportunity, but that sounds like actually the data needs to be collected in terms of defining what are these metrics in terms of, like you mentioned, right, people with alternative backgrounds, different backgrounds, what kind of data identifies them, and what kind of thresholds do we want to get to, right? Whether it's an adverse impact ratio or 50-50 kind of a ratio we want to look at. So in addition to technology, sounds like there's also a lot of planning and strategy and decision making around there. But
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to track, and we don't want to make it a numbers game and a quota game, but we want to be able to track our progress. So if we say that we are going to grow our diversity and the makeup of our organizations, we need to be able to track that. And it's not just the end result of what our overall organization looks like, but who is applying to our job. So it starts before we even, we are even introduced to our potential employees. So how are we advertising? Who is applying? What does that applicant pool look like? Who is being selected for interviews? Who is being brought into the organization? What does their life cycle look like? So all of those different things are important, and we have to be able to track that over time in order to understand the impact that we're actually having.
Absolutely agree with that.
For us, I would say, and it's a little even a step. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah,
is
my
mic working better? Yes. Sorry about it. So I will say it's a step, for a previous step, right? I think when we think about diversity, it's all about really hiring the more competent individual and be sure that we have the right outreach, right, to all the different segments that we want to incorporate. But I have a struggle here today at ENGIE, even defining what a competent individual looks like. What is the job profile, right? So what is not just the cultural fit, the experience, the competencies, the traits, the drives. we have job descriptions that are very vague, right? And we have a very vague process. So how technology can really support us to define competence, right? And guaranteed again that I'm reaching out and I have a fair outreach, and it's a fair process with metrics, right? But I think we're way behind, at least here, and in previous companies as well, regarding basic foundational definitions. We talk about potential, nobody understands what potential is. We talk about performance, we still measuring performance. As I measured performance 20 years ago at Unilever, the same system, the same approaches. Annual performance review, right, has not been evolving in 20 years. Mm-hmm. So again, when I'm visualizing inclusion and diversity, right, I will invite folks to think, what are the foundations that we have and how technology can support to guarantee that the foundation is there, right? So yeah, just my 2 cents.
I think definitely like that point, which is if we are not evidence-based about what job success and competence looks like, it's difficult to achieve equity. That's definitely true. That's true.
And I think, Jay, that's where we see a lot of biases, right? Because everybody has their own idea of what good looks like and what competencies, what a leader looks like. So if we don't have that common understanding and also are holding people to that, that's where the bias comes in, because people have their own thoughts around what a leader looks like, what does a good employee look like, who's a good fit for this job, just based on their own thoughts and experiences. So I think that's an absolutely good point.
I wanted to share a little bit of our experience over here, precisely on this point, helping with some organizations, basically defining what success looks like. And it's funny how sometimes we talk to recruiting teams. There's a certain model that gets formed, and then they make decisions in terms of who gets selected, who gets interviewed, who gets hired. And when you look at the people who finally get hired, it's very different from what the original model was. So you go back and try and triangulate, like, what is it that's actually different? And then you actually track these people who get hired. How do they actually perform over time? The people who perform great versus the people who are average, what's the difference? And then you start realizing that, well, actually, a lot of what we think might not be really what it is after the data starts talking. So actually, it's quite a learning process to also go through this whole cycle. Okay, do you have any other comments, our dear panelists? If not, I would also like to move on to another topic, which was also mentioned, the elephant in the room, great resignation. So I see stats out there that, that 40–50% of the people are going to be quitting their jobs in the coming year. But I mean, in a very weird way, it's also a chance for a reset, right? How do you see organizations doing it differently this time, such that we don't have a repeat of this scenario?
Probably we can start with Dr. D.
Anybody, no pressure.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, I think that's a great question, and I think it is really around our foundation. What's making now, and guys, I'm always going to speak from the DEI lens, so excuse me. But what is making this time different than maybe, and especially here in the U.S. Than before, is that now we have a awareness around the impact of a lack of diversity, a lack of inclusion and equity in the workplace, and what it does to people in regards to wellness, the trauma that it creates, and how it can be a benefit for the organization if they are more intentional around those things in regards to being more innovative, in regards to serving their customers better, in regards to performing better as an organization. So just understanding that and being committed to that are some of the things that I see organizations having a foundation for that, and being able to change the culture. I think it was Chief Smith that said a little bit earlier, people are leaving organizations because of poor leadership. That means because because the culture is poor. So how do we address our culture? And that really is organizations looking from the inside out, instead of saying these people aren't good for us, but are we good enough for the people? And I think that that is something that organizations should be asking themselves, and taking that deep dive to really change the experiences that they are offering. A lot of times people are not concerned with the money, they are concerned with how they feel. Can they be their full selves? Is it a place where they feel as though they belong, where they feel as though they can grow, where they feel as though they thrive? And those are the things that people are looking for other than compensation. So how can organizations reassess their culture and create a place where people actually feel that they belong there, and they just don't have to kind of fit into the status quo?
Probably we should invite Chief Smith to talk about that, right? Chief Smith?
You're on mute if you're trying to speak.
No.
Probably Adriana or Vaneeta?
To add something on the comment, I think everything is very valid, what you mentioned. And I think it's all about, again, this congruency. I offer you a value proposition when you join my organization, right? I make a statement about the culture, about your development, about your compensation, right? So I offer you a value proposition that hopefully fit, right, your purpose. And it's all about how do I keep that congruency from beginning to end. We lost people when we disenchant, right? And when we don't provide what I promise you that I will be providing for you. So how, again, we can build that awareness of what we're offering, what is the culture that we have, what are the processes, policies, technology that support that value proposition along the way, from how I embrace you and onboard you up to how I engage you and retain you, right? And I think the chief right now, the big change for us is employees are driving. Organizations used to drive. Now employees are driving. And if we as organizations don't embrace that change of mindset, that change of reality, we will keep struggling with saying it's my way, and if you like it, good. If you don't like it, find somewhere else, right? So again, I think it's all about helping employees to fit with the purpose and rethinking in talent management how we are doing things, right? How we are doing things. We continue having the same practices as 20 years ago, and I have been company after company after company. It's a little bit more, a little bit less, but it's pretty much the same. And our employees, current employees, new employees are requesting something completely different, right? Right now we have the virtual alternative reality that is coming up. What we are going to do with that if I still teach and learning, right, in 20 years old-fashioned way? Having onboarding for years, 4 days of onboarding, right? I mean, I think we need to update our map to the current reality if we want to really be competent, right? And anyhow, my 2 cents again.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I agree that the whole concept of the employer value proposition is completely different now in terms of the dynamics of the talent market. Yeah, and we do see that in various countries where in the past, a lot of cultures have been very employer-driven. Now it's really changing, and it's a big shock for many professionals in the space because they seriously used to be sitting on the other side of the table. Vaneeta, you have any views on this?
Yeah, I think some very valid points and eye-opening statements here. And one of them is certainly that organizations are being driven by employees now, and they are all different. Everybody doesn't need the same thing. So how do you come to a common platform where you offer what each employee needs? It's so different and distinct. And having diversity and inclusion, and at the same time offering what each employee wants and needs, is going to be a challenge. We are right now sitting and defining, because we were working on our career page, redefining it, and we were redefining our employee proposition and the purpose, who are we and what do we stand for the employees, And you're rightly saying that, because what kind of worked 5 years back, I mean, I'm not going 20 years back, because I guess every 5 years is a decade already, doesn't work anymore. It will not work, because the way we are onboarding people, as Adriana rightly said, in the past, is not going to work anymore. The performance appraisals, the way we were doing in the past, will not work anymore. There's so much change that's coming from what employees want, that we don't even know where we are heading right now. I mean, it is too early to say what they really want, because things are changing. We are on the fly right now.
Yeah, that's true. Indeed.
So I guess to be able to pin down what really will finally happen, I think we are in the metamorphosis state right now. So how do we address this?
That paints a light at the end of the tunnel, at least. So I think that's great. Very good analogy. I wanted to take this chance to ask if anybody in the audience has a question for the panel.
Or comment, right?
Yeah, or comment anything. If you're a little shy to speak, you can feel free to type it in the box. Okay. Okay, so while you guys are thinking about that, maybe I'll bring up another question. Really back to our original topic, HR tech. Wanted to get your views on what are you most excited about in terms of upside, and what are some big concerns that you have about it?
One of the main components, as you were mentioning just previously, was about how do we keep personalization and the individual aspect that you were just mentioning now, right, at scale. It's like a paradox, right? It's personalization at scale. But many industries start doing it, right? And we have examples like Netflix they have a scale approach, but they personalize. They know what you watch, when you watch it, how long, right? So again, technology starts playing a very important aspect as to how to make that happen. As a consumers, we are all consumers in different aspects, right? We want personalization, affordable personalization, and the only way to make it happen is a scale. So I think technology plays a foundational aspect to make that happen, and we see in many industries, from the automotive industry to the food industry to the happening now, right? But it is all about how do we map out people trends? What are the people trends? And how I can get ahead with my strategy and my transformational approach that will fit that needs, because otherwise we will be behind. So it's happening. That's the exciting piece.
I like the way you put it, to personalize at scale. That is very difficult, but thankfully it's possible, like you said, with technology, with data. And yeah, I mean, I don't know whether it's intentional, but it's a great endorsement of what Pulsifi is setting out to do, really trying to connect everything so that we understand people well and are able to personalize that. Yeah. And yes, being able to get ahead of people trends, that's also something very powerful. Yeah, I think it's a journey to get there, but once we get there, I think that will really be a big change.
There's a comment from Brian here.
Yes.
I hear a few times we leave the manager, not the firm, but has the manager changed over this pandemic? Are you seeing any shift in the culture or the way managers behave or manage teams and so on and so forth during the pandemic or after the pandemic? Vaneeta or Adriana? Please go ahead.
There's a lot of effort I have to make or to build capabilities for managers to learn how to embrace a hybrid workforce. Right? How you can build connections. Someone was talking about connection, the importance of remain or maintain the connectivity, right? The sense of we belong, right? We are one, right? Humanity, despite the specific efforts we and I, the NE to target some segments, the goal is how do we unify, right? How do we bring humanity and connection? But if for the managers having a new capability to learn how to manage a hybrid population, a hybrid employees to maintain that connection, right? That accountability, that empowerment. So I think it was very organic last year, despite the little efforts. And this year, the invitation is how do we do it purposefully? How do we plan? Because we know now for sure that that will be the reality for the next year, for the next 2 years. So I think, again, changes happen and we all organically learn. Now let's tap into the lessons learned and what I need to reinforce and purposefully train them, build the capability, right, on this area, versus just leave it up to them to continue being more agile digitally, for example. We all learn how to use the different things or whatever that allow us to connect. Now, how do we reinforce that? How do we purposefully fill the gaps where we see gaps? A lot of my phone calls happen with closed camera, for example. We have these type of sessions and we lost 80% of the language when we don't see someone talking, right? And if I have an accent, right? And if I'm not clear enough, articulated enough, so what is really the communication that get delivered, get narrowing? So just inviting and training people or managers, for example, to have meetings where the majority, maybe not all because it's exhausting, right? But to see each other, to connect with each other, that makes a big difference, for example.
I'm not sure if Chief is able to turn on her mic. Chief Smith? Okay.
Maybe not.
Not yet. Vaneeta, how about your views on this topic?
Yes, I guess managers realize that their old ways won't work. They themselves struggle. So I guess the theme here, which Adriana rightly brought, is communication. The way they used to communicate with teams have changed. They realized it long time back that if you're not connecting, you're sitting, you're not in same office, you're not over meeting over coffee, you're not having that kind of a connect that you used to have to build that relationship that was possible when you were together or when you were in offices or things like that. But now, how do you build that relationship with your team that used to exist before is important, and there has to be certain initiatives at the end of manager to be able to do that. So that's one, how to build that relationship that used to exist pre-pandemic era. It's not just about meeting to accomplish certain tasks that you have given to your team, but it's also to make them realize that they are a team, first of all. How do people sitting in different geographies become a team? And how do you build that relationship? I think that's what they have realized. That's a reckoning for them. And that has brought certain measures of meeting over, like a lot of companies are doing, okay, a coffee connect, just don't talk about work. Let's just not talk about work, happy hours. So that relationship building is important, and that will always be because you're not together, you're not talking other than work. How do you build that relationship? And then the other is definitely, so connectivity, communication, and purpose. the three themes that Adriana talked about. I really like that, because I think managers need to know that to be able to bring the meaningful content to their conversations with their teams. So I think managers are changing. They have realized if they don't do that, it will not work. So there is a realization definitely there. There is an effort that's happening. And at the same time, they are looking for some guidance there. So to choose question, yes, managers have changed over this pandemic. We all have in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And communication has become the theme. And that's why technology is trying to help people communicate better, faster, customized. And that's my 2 cents here.
Yep, I think that also covers what Summer was asking in terms of virtual collaboration. And I think what I see over here actually is a theme of being deliberate, right? Like how in the past when we were working in the office, we don't think so much about connecting because it sort of happens when we go grab a coffee together. But now when people are working from home, we actually have to schedule time to have a coffee chat, like you said. But that deliberation, I think, also applies to being very specific about, what we mentioned about job competence, about culture, and even about diversity, equity, and inclusion. What do we want to achieve? How do we track it so that we can achieve it? So I think one change definitely with this pandemic is how a lot of things that we used to take for granted, we really need to double down and actually do it rather than hopefully them happen on their own. So that's definitely one big change that I saw. So conscious of it being the last 2 minutes, I wanted to just wrap up a bit. And if anybody is going to be hanging on after this, we can still talk more. I'd like to just touch on how we spoke about learning, right? And I think what the panel has shared was how there's really a sea of content out there, but the key really is about relevancy to the individual, to your organization, and have content be in a stackable format, right? So it's easy to consume and learn. We spoke about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? How it's a top-down and bottom-up thing. But we really need to know where we want to get to in order to track that and be able to say that we're getting there. We spoke about how in order to address biases, we need to know what good looks like. We also spoke about the great vaccination, right? And I think what's different now versus in the past really is just this awareness of the trauma, managers doing their role in terms of connecting and communicating with their team. But ultimately, organizations also need to be genuine in the value proposition so that people can just be themselves where they are, they can grow, they can thrive. And so finally, we touched on HR tech. I think there's a big potential to be able to personalize HR at scale and getting ahead of people trends. Those are nice things I like to end the panel on. And yeah, it's been a great hour, passed by really quickly. Really enjoyed my time with all of you. Any further comments from anybody? Yep, agree with you, Adriana, definitely. Coming back to what was mentioned, I think earlier by Vaneeta, it's really people that make the organization. So what we're doing is definitely meaningful over here.
Yeah. Again, thanks a lot, everybody, for joining the session today. And thanks to the panelists for your fantastic insights, your amazing inputs about the whole HR tech space. And I think this is just the beginning. We need to, reconnect offline, have more discussions about Pulsifi, about your organization challenges and so on and so forth. So I would request to have more such, interactions online, offline, and reconnect more. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody, and have a good day or good night. Take care, stay safe.